Session here is all about Copilot from an admin perspective. We know about this user group here, and I must say, even though I didn't understand everything you said, as in I didn't understand anything at all, I could still see the slides, and I'm really impressed with what you guys are doing. You have a very active user group, so we are super happy to be here. Who am I? My name is Kent. My background is in endpoint management. Been working with SCCM, Intune, all of that good stuff for many years. And within the last, I would say 4 or 5 years, more and more security. And within the last 24 months, more and more data security. And the good question is, why? And the answer is, I guess, is that the whole world is turning, towards more and more data security. There are lots of good reasons for that. We will not be able to cover that in only 45 to 50 minutes here. But I see that change also with other colleagues in the business here. But alongside with me, Morten.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. So my name is Morten, and I'm proud to be working with Kent. And as Kent mentioned, I have a background also in device management. And for the past few years, I've been transitioning towards security, compliance, and that sort of stuff. It's actually funny that you mentioned it, because we definitely see customers saying that even though they work with device management and they have for many years, then usually they say that they transition slowly towards security as well, and that's also a big part of their job right now. So it's not only device management, but it's device management plus security. So yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, and what I'm looking at the polls here, another thing that makes this interesting is that 77% of you here are not actively using Purview, and I'm confident that it will be a normal integrated path, a way of your daily life. If not this year, then at least next year. You need to know about data security, just like you need to know about the other zero trust aspects of being an IT pro. That's just the way it is. Cool, and we're both consultants in our daily life, working for today and Denmark, Finland, and Norway and Sweden. So when looking at the agenda for today, I saw Yoshi is coming in and talking about security Copilot, and one of the things the number one question we get is when we talk to customers about Copilot is what is Copilot? And then someone in the room will say, well, I know Copilot, and then he or she comes up with an explanation that's like way off. we had that yesterday. So just to clarify, to us, the way we define Copilot, M365 Copilot is it's your personal assistant, right? And who would not love to have a personal assistant that can make your life easier? That's Copilot M365, period. It cannot brew your coffee, it cannot, there's a ton of stuff it cannot do. And one of the things I saw also in the polls is that I think it was like 40% of you have successfully implemented Copilot. That's another thing. How do you measure success? Which is also super interesting. It's not technical, so we will leave that out of this conversation. But it's just to say there are so many myths in here already with this technology, and often if you want to have a real conversation, and we know that. We need to base this on facts. So coming in here this morning, and I'm only going to show one prompt, but that I promise you, because that's not why you're here. But this is to me, how I see and how I use Copilot here. So this could be, and I'm using my production environment. So whatever comes up here is stuff I have to attend to. I guess it says good morning, Kent. But what I've asked it to do is, just give me an overview of my day. Make it with emojis, because well, I like that. And and use my calendar, use my team. So use the information you have in my M365 tenant. And already there, we have customers going, well, I thought it could also go into my Exchange on-prem. I have this other stuff on-prem and so on and so forth. And the truth is, a lot of times when this is not successful, it's because you have like, legacy applications, legacy devices, and so on and so forth. But this is to me, this is Copilot. It helps me, and for me, it's all about me. I know that sounds like a little arrogant, but if it cannot help me, then I cannot use it. That's what I mean. So here I get, I get information, insights about my day. What do I need to focus on? Also because, just in case I went outside, I would like to know about the weather. And since I'm talking to you guys today, this morning, it would be kind of nice to know anything about, when are the next upcoming holidays in Finland and what happened in Finnish history. So when we go for lunch, I can sit down and sound like a smart guy. And then because I really like, humor more than anything else, then I have the joke of the day. So all of this is just to make my life easier. And if you cannot convince your colleagues, if you cannot convince yourself that your life needs to be easier, don't go for Copilot 365. To me, it's that simple. So this is just an example. Okay, so what are the technical challenges? And what is your perception of reality? That was one of the questions in here. And when we go to customers, and I stole this slide here from Microsoft, and we will obviously be sharing the slides, but we are seeing exactly the same. So when we go to customers and we want to implement something, and especially Gen AI, we need to look at security. We need to look at, all the zero trust elements, how secure are your devices, how up to date are they, and all of that good stuff that you already master. What we see most of the time is that our customers or, new customers, they are somewhere in between what we categorize as baseline and core. So there is some MFA. I'm pretty sure you have been talking about conditional access and you know all about that. Conditional access is fantastic. Most know about it. Not that many has actually implemented a zero trust based a conditional access solution. But we do have something here. Now, there is a perception that in order for you to really implement Copilot, you need to have, Microsoft 365 E5. But those of us with an E3 license, we already have the tools that we need to secure the environment. So we do have conditional access. We can go in and work with sensitivity labels, DLP, and so on and so forth. So you don't have to sit around and wait to be the best in class. And that's really with everything that moves so fast today. If you sit around and wait for perfect, I mean, you will wait forever. So it's all about having, be in control, absolutely be in control, but also know when is enough, right? We also have this guy. So the world would be so much easier, I believe, if it was just the likes of you and me, technical persons. We want to work with tech, but then, we run into this guy, and all of a sudden we have to talk compliance. And when I look at one of the best reports I've seen is from Data Tilsynet in Norway. And what they have done is they have like a public statement in here, a report saying, well, you really should know what you're doing, because if you do not know what you're doing, if you do not have, let me see, did I lose my mouse here? If you are not a master in your own house, then Copilot here is going to be an issue. And I totally agree. I totally agree with what they're saying down here, that, there's a lot to gain in Copilot, but it's like an end user on steroids. So you need to make sure, that whatever, you need to make sure that you understand that whatever the end user can read, manipulate, change, and so forth, Copilot will be able to do the same, just with lightning speed, right? So at first, when you read this report, and those of you working with Copilot, working with data security, I think, and I've not seen one in Finland yet, but I know we in Denmark, in Copenhagen, we have a reference to this one in Norway, and they have in other countries too. So if you haven't read one data protection report before, make sure you read this. It's definitely worth it. And it may seem like, okay, they say, don't use it, don't use it, don't use it, but they're not saying that. They're just saying, know the power that you are giving to your company, and then make sure you control access to data, you control, data security, and so on and so forth, because everybody will come pointing at you. So before we do all the super cool technical stuff, just make sure that you read that document. And then as in here, we just have a couple of slides where we have some links to, okay, so how do you go to baseline? What is it that you need to do? 72% of you said you're not using Purview at all. We have a link in here to an optimization assessment. This optimization assessment here will take you through and ask a couple of questions. And then at the end, it's going to build a report for you, have some recommendations, and say, okay, before you really, enable Copilot for everybody, do this, do that, and so on and so forth. So this optimization assessment here is a great way to start. Obviously, we can deploy Copilot, and if you don't want to deploy the package or whatever, we can just go ahead and remove the package and use whatever tool, Intune, whatever, to remove that package. So you are still in complete control. That's really the important message here. When you want to move to the baseline, now you can see, now all of a sudden we are talking about SharePoint Advanced Management, Microsoft Purview. There is a ton of stuff in here. And if you've never really worked with Purview before, it seems like super overwhelming. And the meeting we had yesterday, the customer, they were having like terabytes of data. They go like, but there's no way we can classify everything. And you don't have to classify everything. But you have to start. And the longer you wait, the bigger the task is just going to be. That's for sure. So baseline, that's really what we're aiming for. And when I've shown you this slide here, then we will go in and have a look at what it is. And then obviously someone has to be best in class. Morten, have we met many that are really best in class yet?
No, it's just like you say, most customers are in between core and baseline and moving towards best in class, with the E5, bells and whistles, all of that. That's we haven't seen that yet. That's like the unicorn, right? That's what we're aiming for. That's the North Star, right? So it's always good to have something to aim for.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Cool. So how do we do all of this? And do you want to share your screen, Morten?
Yeah, let me do that.
I think you will take. Yeah.
All right, let me take over here. So yeah, just like you say, how do we start? And in order for us to know where do we start, we need to know sort of what is the threat we need to mitigate here, right? So obviously, you guys know that Copilot is a license you can buy, and it can be a part of your Office products. It can be a part of your browser. It can be a part of your PC. But what can it access? That's the important stuff, right? Because that's what makes it so powerful. So everything within the red boundary here is what it has access to, right? So it has access to everything that you have access to. That being said, it could be Teams, could be SharePoint, OneDrive, SharePoint, everything like that. Everything that you have access to, Copilot have access to, and that's great. But that's also what can make it a little bit dangerous, because When you onboard to M365, then what we see is that usually people don't spend that much time on adoption. They don't teach people how to share stuff. They don't teach people where to put stuff. So over time, that can create a bit of a risk in terms of who has access to what and in terms of governance, right? So yeah. So where do we start? That's a really good point, and that's what this guy is trying to find out.
Some of those services here we have also seen was implemented during COVID. So maybe governance wasn't really part of the conversation because it literally had to happen overnight, and that comes back and bite us right now.
Yeah, I mean, we have to realize that Copilot is not the bad guy, you know. It's not what is to blame for poor governance. So we just need to know like how bad is it and where do we need to start. So I will just switch over to my demo environment here, and obviously I need to reconnect. Let me just do that. But yeah, as I said, we need to know where to start, and there's a lot of tools to do that within our current licenses, for most of you guys at least. Gen AI and AI is, of course, a new technology. So first of all, customers, employees need to know how to use it. But as an IT pro, like you guys say, many of you haven't done anything in Purview yet, and haven't done anything in data classification yet, right? So where to start? And a good place to start, where we usually start, is in here. So most of our customers, they have onboarded their endpoints to Defender, and when they are onboarded to Defender, they obviously do telemetry to the Cloud Discovery dashboard here in Defender for Cloud Apps. And what's interesting here is that you can go to the Discovered Apps. And in here, Microsoft has a catalog basically where they index, I think it's around 31,000 different applications, and then they categorize them. So if we want to search for Gen AI, for example, we can do that just by browsing to the little category over here and then clicking Gen AI. We can even say right now it's showing the last 30 days. Could be more interesting maybe to look at the past 90 days. And once we do that, then we can actually see, okay, so which applications are our devices trying to access. And this list usually, consists of many, many different generative AIs. So regardless of whether the customers have onboarded to Copilot, regardless of whether they have a Gen AI strategy or anything like that, then we see all of our customers, they have a huge list in here, right? Where they have tons of use cases. Obviously, ChatGPT, that's usually topping the charts, but they have also got, Beyond Words, ReadSpeaker, those are usually top of the list as well, and Copilot. So in here, we can click on one of these, and we can actually see stuff like, okay, so this ReadSpeaker here, where's the headquarters, where's the data center, and if we scroll down to compliance, we can see, okay, so how many of these regulatives do they actually comply with, and maybe we are interested in GDPR as well. So do they report to GDPR? Do they comply with that? And then based on these metrics here, then every application will have a risk score, and the lower the risk score, the more dangerous the app is, right? And the higher the risk score, obviously they comply with a lot more of these metrics. So that's usually
maybe
where we start.
Morten, because here we're just looking at our own demo tenant, and there are like 5 or 8 apps. But one of the questions we asked was, in average, when we're doing this at a medium or enterprise customer, how many Gen AI, different Gen AIs do we see? Remember, how many did we see yesterday?
I mean, we usually see more than 150. That's quite common. Even in small companies, we see 50 plus, right? So and that can be, I mean, you can see here, this is 6 users, right? and we have quite a few in our old environment. So even in small customers, we see that they are using at least 50 different Gen AIs, regardless of what they have told. I mean, if they have a Gen AI strategy.
Yesterday we saw 179, I believe it was, and that's insane, because we need to stop discussing if we're using Gen AI or not, because clearly we are. What we need to do is we need to discuss whether or not we should be in control. And with GDPR, European, data regulations, and all of that, that's not even a discussion. I mean, you have to be in control. It's your data. It's you who's going to get, like €1 million fine. So when before we start discussing all other stuff like Copilot cannot do this in Word, just know you're already using Gen AI. And why not use a service that you can actually control? I think that's our main message here.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, we can see what's being used in here, and we can monitor that. But what's being used in here and here, that's what's interesting, right? So if we want to control that, then just as you say, we need to educate our users in how they use these tools, right? So yeah, the Defender for Cloud Apps Discovery Dashboard, that's usually a big eye opener for our customers, and many don't even know that they have access to this sort of data, right? So that's usually the eye opener. Next up, what we do is we go into the Purview portal, and in here there's a data security posture management solution where we can see what's actually being prompted within Copilot, right? Because if Copilot is being used in a wrong way, then chances are that many of those other generative AIs that the customer is using, most likely they are being used in a wrong way as well, right? So in here we can actually see every single AI interaction that the customer has, and that's regardless of whether it's is it the chat version, is it the actual assistant. We can even see, as you can see here, I will show you a little bit about that later. We can even see other Gen AI apps, right? So how are they using Gemini? How are they using ChatGPT? All of this stuff can be a big eye opener for them as well, right? So, and if we click into one of these AI interactions, we can even see, what's the prompt that the user is using, and we can also see the response that they get from the Gen AI. So, so this is in Danish, right? But actually, what I did here is I asked it to summarize a document, so I uploaded that, and then it started to to generate a response here. So that's also usually a big eye opener for the customers, and it's a good way to do spot checks on are we using Copilot in the right way. And for those of you that have that are very quick to see, then you can actually see there's a little thing here called the sensitive info types, and the sensitive info types are basically words or categorizations of data patterns that we can configure ourselves. So if we're interested in specific type of data, then we can configure those ourselves, or we can use those that are already built into Purview. And the way we do that is we click on one of these solutions here within Purview. We go to classifiers, click this little link here, sensitive info types, and you can see Microsoft have 300 plus of these already. I have created a few of my own here, but as you can see here, that could be personal identification number, can be confidential data, biometric stuff. And then all of these info types, we can actually see how much of this do we actually use in our M365 environment. So if we go to Explorer here, we go to Data Explorer. Then we can filter on one of these info types, and I will just type Denmark, so the ones that I have configured will show. Let's say we are interested in the personal identification numbers, right? If I click on that, then I can actually see, okay, so we actually do have 38 of those. Some of those are being used in Copilot. That's maybe not so great. We have a few in OneDrive as well, SharePoint and Teams. And if I have access to it, then I can click on one of these solutions. And this is something that you need a role-based, a role within Purview to actually see. You can't even see it if you are the global admin in your tenant. You need a role within Purview to be able to see this data, because you can essentially open every file that is in M365, right? So if I were to click on
that, we really need to emphasize, or you need to emphasize that when you're presenting, because I mean there are so many. They're so scared about big brothers watching you, but the truth is, you know, we don't have access. Obviously, if there is a case, HR or compliance, they will need access, and then we can have a system where they request access and so on and so forth. But we do not have access, and even if you say it once, people don't really understand it, and then I mean it comes up again and again and again. And then all of a sudden they're not speaking, you know, not speaking facts. They're just speaking from their stomach, and that's fine when you're watching soccer, but it's not good when you're talking about IT. You need to know about facts.
Yeah, so this is obviously you know, an IT pro portal, but this is not an IT pro product, so to say. I mean, you need to have some sort of collaboration between those of to have a collaboration between the information security department or HR or whatever, and maybe those need some access in here, right? It's not something that should be within IT only, of course. All right, within data security posture management for AI. Something that is in preview right now is the data assessments, and these actually runs once a week usually, without you having to do anything. And they actually scan for the top 100 sites in your organization, and that is the top 100 SharePoint sites and OneDrive sites that you have. And they scan for, I will just click on one of these to show you. What they scan for is, of course, how much data you have, how much of that data contains a sensitive info type, and what's interesting here is, you know, how much data is shared. So in here we can actually see that on the top 100 SharePoint sites we have in our old environment, we have 4.9 thousand links that are shared organization-wide. And why is that important? That's important because obviously, as we mentioned before, Copilot have access to what you have access to. So if there's an org-wide sharing link, that means that you can do, you know, the right prompt, and then you can actually see that data. So if a colleague has, you know, shared a file with, you know, payroll information or other confidential information to a colleague, and then they used a org-wide sharing link, then that means that every employee in that organization can essentially, you know, use the right prompt and then find this data. So this is definitely something that is also quite a big eye opener, and this is something that is a Microsoft default, you know, that you can create these org-wide sharing links, and we see a ton of these in every organization because it's easy, you know, it's easy to create sharing links that everyone has access to, and then share those, of course. But in terms of Copilot, maybe that's something that we need to address.
Yeah, maybe, because I mean, if you're thinking about, okay, is this a big thing? Well, again, yesterday it was, I don't even remember how many thousand it was, but it was many thousand files we saw, and you can almost, I mean, you can almost compare this to those of you who have been working with SCCM now, giving this crowd here. Just imagine if you always deployed all of your apps to all systems. It will, from a technical standpoint, it will work, but you know, someone would probably yell at you at one point, and it's the same here. But here, the people who will yell at you is the compliance people, and you know, so yeah, this number here should be low, as in really low, and this is just a demo environment. Remember that.
Yeah, so I mean, chances are that this number will be a lot higher in your organization, because as I mentioned, that the SharePoint default is that you can do it. It's easy to turn off, but again, like who thought of that before Copilot, right? So next up, after assessing the environment, we have seen, okay, so we are actually using quite a few different generative AIs. We do know that we potentially have some data that is being overshared. We also know that some of these prompts that we can see in Copilot, some of these are quite sensitive. So we need to do something about that, right? And one of the things that we can do, just as you showed, Kent, in your slide, we can use a script for that. And there's two things that we can do. The first thing, of course, is we can look at these company-wide sharing links. And I mean, 10 lines of PowerShell, basically. This is how you remove the possibility to do that per SharePoint site. Obviously, you need to connect to SharePoint, and you can change the default sharing type to direct, so that it's not a company-wide sharing link. And the next thing that you can do is that you can say, okay, so these company-wide sharing links, we actually don't want those on, let's say, this could be an HR site, this could be payroll or whatever. We actually don't want those on this specific SharePoint site. And if we run this little script here, then we disable those company-wide sharing links. And I will just show you guys how that actually looks. So let me see if I have that here. So this team here, this is an internal team test 2, and there's a bunch of health data, there's a bunch of confidential data, and there's some summer holiday plans for your child, right? And if a user tries to share one of these files, what they will do is they will try to find one of their colleagues. Okay, so I want to share with this guy, and if I choose this one right here, so the people in our old tenant, if I choose this one, the link that I now create will actually not only be for Kent, it will be for everyone in the organization. Maybe I'm not so interested in that. So if I run the script that I just showed you, and they try to share this highly confidential file in my other team, then I will need to find this guy here again, Kent. And then you can see here, now you don't actually have the option to create these company-wide sharing links. You only have the possibility to specifically share with those that you choose, or the people that already have access to that specific site, right? And that will definitely limit these oversharing links for sure.
How many do we see do that? Because one of the things that I often run into is, well, M365, and when you implement it and you start using SharePoint and those services, you move away from your precious P drive, H drive, and what have you. It's so easy that we don't even need to tell the users.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's usually unintentional that they create these, right? And it's a tenant default that they can do this. So so I don't see any reason why they would use that. All right. So after we've tried to limit oversharing for Copilot, then we can start to actually label some of our data. And the solution for that is information protection sensitivity labels. And in here we can create a list of labels that we want to classify our documents with. Let's say that we have some highly confidential documents that we need to prevent our users from using in Copilot or one of these other generative AIs. Then we create these labels for the users, and they can go into one of their office products, health data. And then once we publish these labels to the user, then we can actually see here, okay, it's actually pretty simple for the user to choose. Okay, so this document is actually confidential, or it's highly confidential. And when they choose one of these, it will be actually quite transparent also to to the end user that, okay, so this is actually a highly confidential document, and we can create a bunch of different other stuff that will make it even more transparent to the other or to the end user. So one example here, for example, is that we have some health data in here, and if we want to limit. Sorry,
it's encrypted for people in Finland. It's already encrypted. The text.
It's already encrypted. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So actually, this one right here, what I'm showing you is, a bunch of different health data. And if we want to limit how that's being used in other generative AIs, because, we saw that, okay, people are using Copilot for a bunch of sensitive stuff that we don't necessarily want them to use in other generative AIs, then we can create policies around, okay, so where can they copy this data? And instead of using these sensitivity labels, then another solution is the data loss prevention. And in here we can create a policy. I will just edit the one that I have already created. And if you're used to working with device management, then you will love working with Purview, because there's a slight delay on stuff in here as well. So yeah, so we can choose. Okay, so where do this policy apply? It applies to all of our devices. And what are we interested in doing? We want to say, okay, so if we have some data that is being copied from one of our documents that contains one of these info types that I showed you earlier, then we want to block it. We want to restrict users from copying that to a list of sensitive domains, and that could be ChatGPT, that could be Gemini, that could be DeepSeek, that could be a list of other generative AIs that you are using. And then we can apply this policy. And once we do that, then the end user will actually not be able to copy that, or they will have to, come with a reason why they are doing it. So if they try to copy this, and then they go into, let me see if I can find this one. If they go into Gemini, for example, and then they paste that into the chat, then you can see here in the top left corner, okay, so we do actually have a Purview DLP extension, this one right here. We have that deployed to our browsers. That can be Chrome, Edge, or Firefox. And then once they try to paste these health data into Gemini, then they can choose to override this block and say, okay, so actually my manager approved this action. And then if they choose this, or they can type a different reason here, all of this will be locked, of course. So regardless of what they choose, then we can see that in the audit log. And if I click allow, then you can see, okay, so now I actually got the chance to paste that into Gemini as well. And once I do that, then of course, as I mentioned in the DSPM for AI, then there will be an entry in here where they say, okay, so there was actually a DLP rule match for this Purview user because he did paste some information, personal identification number or something else. He actually did paste that into Gemini, so we can monitor that when it happens. Another solution that we can use is communication compliance, because we don't actually want to go into a DSPM for AI and click on activity log. We don't actually want to do that. We need to be alert when someone do it, so we can actually act on that. And in communication compliance, then we can create a policy in here where we can detect these Copilot interactions. We can scope which users that we want to deploy it to. And then we would need to choose, okay, who should review these alerts? And again, the reviewers, they don't need to be IT pros, they don't need to be admins, they can be end users, they could be your DPO, it can be information officers or anything like that. So if we type in one of our users here, then we can, create a policy, or we can customize the policy, and we can say, okay, so actually we want to instead of only looking for these trainable classifiers, then we actually also want to, again, use these info types that we have created earlier. And then we can say, okay, so all of these Danish information types, if those are pasted into Copilot, we want to be able to get an alert on that.
When we had a question about the DLP browser extension, if it was for Copilot, for Edge only.
No, it's an extension you can deploy to Edge, Chrome, and there's a Firefox one as well for those that are using that. Yeah, but that's a good question.
Yep. That was why that was the reason why I asked it, because it's in the chat and it's something coming up, and people normally do not know about it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's an extension you can deploy to your browser, and then you can scan for what you paste into that specific browser. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a Word document that you are pasting from. It could be a text file, or it could be something entirely different. So it doesn't necessarily need to be copied from Word. It could be Notepad or an email or something like that. All right. So if I choose all of these info types here, I want to look for these as well. I can even, use OCR, which is it can scan images as well if those are being uploaded. And I want to review every single message that comes in, right? If I create this policy, spoiler alert, this is like the TV kitchen, right? I already did one. And I would show you how that actually looks for the end user, right? So this guy right here, not an admin, not a global admin, not a global read or anything like that. This is just a normal user signing into the compliance solution. And if I open up this policy here that I have created beforehand, so the one that monitors these AI interactions, if I open that one, then I will actually be able to see, okay, so this guy right here, the Purview demo user, he have been quite busy. He have been prompting a lot. And, okay, so this guy here, there's a bunch of conditions that have been detected, addresses and other stuff as well. And I asked Copilot to draft a rejection letter to this guy, and I pasted in a bunch of GDPR info. And I can actually also see the response from Copilot chat. So if you have any guidelines around, how you should use generative AI and what you can use it for, this is maybe not something that you want your end users to do, then you can, create an alert, you can notify someone, and then they can actually see what's in the specific prompt. All right. Another thing that we see in a lot of different environments, and as you showed on your slide, Kent, is the Copilot agents that have now been made available to everyone. And if your organization allows users to sign into third-party applications without having an admin consent, that's actually the default in any tenant. We can verify that here if we go into ID, and then if we go into enterprise applications, go into the consent and permissions, we can see, okay, so we have actually now switched it to do not allow user consent, but in many different cases, right? We see one of these two here. And if we allow our end users to sign into third-party applications, then now with the new agents that are available to everyone, then they are also able to sign into a Copilot agent. And a Copilot agent is basically something that extends the data that are within your graph environment to that specific solution. So maybe we want to limit who can do that as well. And that's within the admin portal here. Then if we go to integrated apps, then we can see the ones that are already employed, of course, and we can see the ones that are available. And then if we click, it's hidden very well, but if we click on this one right here, scroll down a little bit, then we can actually see, okay, so all of our users are able to use agents, and they can, go to the store, and then they can choose to connect to one of these. And it's actually quite simple, I think, Kent, you had a few, but what they can actually do, they can click this little link here, get link, get agents, and then they can just basically search the store and find whatever that they want, right? And there are a few in here, maybe that you're not super interested in, your users are signing into. But they can basically just, find whatever they want in here, click on one of these. Let's take this one, and they can add that, sign into to that service, and then they can start, extending your environment into this solution, right? So that's perhaps something that you want to take a look at as well.
It's not because I'm not paying attention, Morten, but there is a ton of questions coming in here, so I'm trying to answer them in the chat.
Yeah. Let's do that. Sorry for that. I only have one monitor right now, so that's why I haven't seen it. I will do the best I can to answer the question throughout the day. Yeah.
I think I actually managed to answer all of the questions in here. There is one question, really good one. So, lessons learned. If you really want to, you really need to learn. You need to learn Purview, and then the big question is, how do you learn Purview?
Yeah, I think Panu has a really good question as well. Because licenses, like no one wants to be a license expert, and no one is. So Microsoft actually have a pretty nice overview here. I will share the link in the chat afterwards as well. They have an overview of both enterprise licenses. They have the same one for SMB and also for education. And in here you can see there's for each license here, there's a little column that shows which solutions are part of which license. So if we scroll down to let's see here, so DLP here, if we want to say, okay, so endpoint DLP, that's one of the things that I showed you guys. So what license do we need for that? Okay, we actually need either an E5, because this one has been checked, or an E5 compliance license, right? So yeah, looking at the licenses, definitely something that is confusing to a lot of customers. But yeah, using this makes it slightly easier.
I think in respect of time here, that was our 50 minutes of fame. I mean, it's from all your questions and reactions here, it seems like this is an interesting topic. We please reach out to the group here organizing these events here. If you have any questions, you're also more than welcome to reach out to Morten and I. But thanks a lot for having us. It makes it so much easier when there is actually interaction, and it's not every single time we get like 10-15 questions like we did here. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for asking all these questions as well. That's I will do my best and to answer these throughout the day. And if you have any, just like Kent mentioned, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or Teams or email or whatever. That's totally fine.